At this point, it is well established that the government and the ultra wealthy elites are controlling us. But the question is, how do they do it? How do they do it so effectively that we don't revolt? I think these are questions that we've all had. If you've ever read the novel 1984 by George Orwell, fantastic novel. It's about a guy who lives in a futuristic world, although the book is titled 1984, it was written in the 30s. And he realizes that the government, Big Brother, is completely controlling everything that's going on. And most people just become submissive to this system. But he starts to look at how to escape. And the number one method that the government used to survey everyone is surveillance. So they wanted to track every movement that everybody in this world made so that they could predict accurately what they would do and then plan accordingly against that. But more importantly, it was, well, people knew they were tracked, so they wouldn't act out. And so surveillance is, although it's not to the scale that it is in the book, it's very similar in our world today. Like everything you do online is being tracked. And it's not about spying on individuals. It's about monitoring populations. So it's not about you specifically, Jerry that's watching, Sarah that's watching. It's not about you specifically, but it's about the masses. These things add up. And so these systems, they're built to collect patterns essentially, right? Movement, communication, associations. They want to know what you're doing and who you're doing it with. The power, it comes from aggregates, okay, not personal vendettas. And so you might think that's freeing in some way because you're like, oh, it's not specific to me. It's actually not, because that means you can't escape it. So metadata, you have to understand, is more revealing than the content. So they're not really concerned with specific messages that you did or specific online forums that you went to. It's more about who you talk to, when you're talking to them, and like what exactly is it that, you know, in general that the public is talking about in these areas. It's not about like you specifically. And I think the reason that surveillance works so well is because it's essentially invisible when it's normalized. So think about like license plate readers, cameras, phone tracking, all of it. We just all know it exists and we're like, you know, it's been around forever. There's nothing we can really do, so who cares? But it's like that metaphor of the frog in the boiling water. It's like if you put a frog in boiling water, it's going to try to jump out. But if you put a frog in a regular water and slowly boil the water, the frog will stay in it. And so it's the same idea. Like they're slowly just trying to control us more and more, survey us more and more. And what this does is it changes our perception of everything to the point where we become numb to really the taking away of our rights. And when you think about it, they're controlling the media. They're trying to control every piece of information that you get, because controlling information is the ultimate form of control. It's where the power lies. The education system, they're breeding you since you're a kid to basically just be a worker, to be a submissive thinker. J.D. Rockefeller, the guy who founded the General Board of Education, has a quote where he says, I'm in the business of building workers, not thinkers. He also said they'll be too busy working to make money. The entire system is designed to basically keep you a slave, keep you powerless. And it's done so well. And one of the more obvious things that I think all of us know is that they're also controlling the algorithms that you see on social media. Social media, well, I shouldn't say social media, I should more so say phones in general, is the number one place where people spend their time besides work. And when people are at work, they're also on their phone. So they don't even factor that in. But the average American is spending, I think it's like a little over 5 hours on their phone a day, which is more than your family, more than like a lot of other stuff that's going on. So when you think about it, all of them essentially, every method that people get information is being controlled. The algorithms are so powerful. They're so powerful that there's no shot that they're not controlling them. Even the counter operatives, even the people that are calling out the government, like even me, right? It's in your best interest to just assume these people are feds, because I believe that's true. I believe like the government is putting people in power, not in power, but they're putting like pawns that are designed to change the way that you act or perceive information. So you think that you're getting information that's true because it comes from someone who's avant-garde, who's against the norm, who goes against the grain, but in reality they're just a controlled opposition. And so all these social media, it's cooked. You know, in another way that they control us, and this is in my opinion one of the bigger ones, is the economy. So by having the economy perpetually in a declining state, which it's been in my literal entire life, you're creating a system where people are reliant because of this imaginary thing that we call money. So money makes the world go round only because we give it that. At the end of the day, it's just paper. It's just a zero on a screen. But we, as a collective, consciously decided that we were going to give it value, when in reality, we could choose to not. Now, when you have people that are desperate for money, they will work desperate jobs, and as time gets worse, they become more desperate, and they're willing to do the same, if not even more work, for less money. And what happens is these people are constantly at work and they're exhausted, so they come home and they're like, why in the world when I try to educate myself on what's going on in the world today, because I just had a 12-hour shift and I'm barely able to afford rent? And so that basically becomes a weaponization by the government. They don't really care about the economy. They care about controlling you. That's the bottom line. That is the bottom line. A lot of this stuff isn't rocket science. I feel like you guys are probably listening to this and thinking, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I thought of that before. At the end of the day, the number one way, though, that they can control us is through designed comfort, making us just comfortable enough. I mean, everybody's heard the circus and bread thing from Rome. Everybody's heard that. But it's deeper than that. I mean, it's just in general, like, it's like, okay, if you can, you know, if you have like access to pornography within a minute, if you have access to talk to people from other countries, as AI rolls out, that's just giving us the ability to have anything or issue that we have answered within seconds. You can now order a very specific good from another country and have it shipped to your house within the week. So all these are forms of comfort that make us more and more content. And being content is the enemy of progress. So we're not going to revolt if we're just so focused on all of that, you know? The bottom line is that the government, they just want to control the overall input where you get your information, and then keep you content on the side. Like those two things. Like, hey, let's make sure that the algorithm's feeding him what we want, and then when we're done with that, you know, make sure that he can, there's a TV show, a new TV show that's popping that he wants to watch because he's exhausted from his long day at work. And they rinse and repeat this process over and over again. And then, you know, the day that I'm recording this, I think the Epstein files came out 2 days ago, and not a single person on there is convicted. And so they're almost laughing in our face like, haha, we can do whatever we want. What are you going to do? You know, the only thing society can really do is just try to pressure them back, but they don't care. The only way, the unfortunate reality is that the only way that change really happens is when things do get violent. throughout history, that has been the pretty much the only way. There are a few exceptions to this, but even those few exceptions, after a while, it just went back to an oppressive state. So, or they're just like an unimpressive small scale area, you know, it just doesn't work. It's like pick up a history book and check for yourself. I mean, violence, like no one wants to admit it because it seems like such a low class, low IQ way to handle issues, but at some point you can't reason with these people. Now, I'm not calling for anyone to commit any act of violence at all. That's not what I'm saying, but I'm saying at some point when push comes to shove, you can only kick someone when they're down so long before they get back up and kick back. And that's what we're going to see eventually, maybe not in our lifetime. I think in our lifetime though. But we'll see. Thank you guys for watching.